We want to turn now to an earlier conversation I had, as many are wondering whether a convention with Donald Trump as the presumptive nominee will be drastically different than conventions past. One of those differences does include the threat of violence. This is one of the many topics I discussed with Bloomberg Politics co-managing editor John Heilemann.
Hopefully, peaceful demonstrations, all good, everything fine. But people are a little concerned, to the point, as you know, yesterday the Cleveland Police Union asked the governor to do something about the open carry.
An extraordinary request on its face.
Extraordinary request on its face. And again, I have sympathy for Governor Kasich, who had to basically say, I can't repeal the state constitution, even if I'm sympathetic to your concerns. But it's a little weird being around here and seeing people. I mean, I've been in open carry states before, but usually not with this many people around and as much kind of fraughtness as there is in the wake of yesterday in Baton Rouge and previously in Baton Rouge and Dallas and everything that's happened. So everybody's a little on edge about that and whether that will be overtake the whole convention. Again, hopefully it won't, and it'll all be fine. Then there's what's going on inside here, where, in every way, as always, Donald Trump is doing things his way.
His way.
Yeah.
With regard to the fear-mongering, by both campaigns thus far, you should be scared if my opponent is in the White House.
Right, yeah.
Now that the nation is collectively on edge, does that in any way, is there blowback there? Does it start to backfire?
I don't know the answer to that question.
But I'm having you on to answer that question.
I think both. Look, Trump is, I'm like the last or the 1800th person to say this, and he's very explicitly now running the Nixon campaign from 1968. He's saying the country's riven by protest. There are these acts of violence occurring. I will be the firm hand of law and order that will bring order back to America. And there's inherently there's two kinds of fear-mongering going on, one of which is Hillary Clinton's horrible, and the other, and Barack Obama's horrible, and they've led to this. And the other is, I'm the only one strong enough to bring us back together. Yeah. And if you don't vote for me, the forces of disorder and disarray will consume the country. Worked for Nixon in 1968, it's a politically potent message, and so we'll see. Hillary Clinton, at least so far on the questions of related to law and order and related to race, she's trying to portray herself as a unifying figure. And she had this speech in Springfield last week where she basically said, I've sometimes contributed to the division in the country. I don't want to do that anymore. But then she spent the rest of the speech attacking Donald Trump. So I think that people want in the country that when I'm out in the world and talking to people, I think people want to be brought together, and people don't want to be scared, and people want to feel confidence and feel a sense of unity. But both of these candidates are so unpopular that they both see each other's unpopularity as such a ripe target that they can say, God, man, Donald Trump is really unpopular.
Fruit is just low-hanging.
Let's make him even more unpopular. If we can make him more unpopular, the Clinton campaign thinks we win. And Trump thinks the same thing about her. I don't think they can resist. But it's a horrible kind of dynamic that could get just worse and worse in terms of the tone and tenor of the campaign.
Things begin here 1 p.m. Eastern, though notable perhaps as much for who will not be here this week.
A lot of people won't be here.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Let's
make the list.
Here we go. Both past Republican nominees, both past Republican presidents. No one from, one could argue, the reigning GOP family dynasty. A popular home state governor. Virtually every rising star in the party.
Right.
Scott Baio will be here.
Yes, he will.
What do you make of...
Chachi's in charge. You know what they say.
What do you think of the impact that those impact...
As my friends the Beastie Boys once said, Chachi in charge. Yeah.
Those absences.
Look, the party's divided, and there's no way to paper over the fact that the Republican Party is a house divided. It's not Donald Trump's party yet. Donald Trump's going to try to put his stamp on the party this week, but the absences of those people and the ways in which there are a lot of conservatives and a lot of Republicans who still feel as though they're trying to make peace with Trump. Some of them have, like Paul Ryan, is the ultimate symbol of this, right? Someone who has endorsed Trump but continues to criticize him, continues to assert the right to withdraw his endorsement at some point. That's like it's a house, I say, a house divided, and so Trump this is going to be a very all Trump all the time convention. We're going to see him, I believe now, or he's making a trip in here to introduce his wife tonight on stage. There's talk about him doing a video thing tomorrow night. Wednesday is TBD, but we're told that Trump will probably make an appearance all in the 10 to 11 o'clock hour. Never seen that before in a convention where the nominee, rather than saving it all up for the big speech on Thursday and maybe making an appearance in the skybox on Tuesday or Wednesday to wave, Trump's going to be here wall to wall himself. This is going to be, as much as the focus rhetorically on Clinton and her weaknesses, Donald Trump will be the main image. And I think the main thing people remember, for good or ill, out of this convention, this is not going to be about other people's speeches or about other people's performances. This is going to be about the Donald.
You have said it many times to me, the three big moments.
Yeah.
VP, now convention, and the debates.
The two of which you can control, the VP and the convention, and another of which you can't control, which is the debate.
All right, well, then let's go to the first one.
Yeah.
The one he could control.
Right.
Obviously, world events pushed it back, but there
Right.
was also a lot of suggestions that there was waffling late into the evening
Right.
the day before the announcement. What did you make, not just of the selection of Mike Pence as his VP pick, but the optics around it,
Yeah.
considering that, in a way, it's all about optics.
Right. I got to start. To me, it's like you got to start with the headline. The headline is that people do not vote for running mates. They vote for the top of the ticket. So your main goal when you're putting someone on the ticket is pick someone who clears the bar of qualified to be president and seen as qualified to be president by the press. Because if they're not, if they're Dan Quayle or Sarah Palin, and the press starts to raise questions about that person's suitability for the office, you've got a firestorm of bad stories, further vetting by the press. It can all spin out of control. Trump, by picking Pence, cleared that bar. No one today is saying Mike Pence is not qualified for this job. As a guy who was in Congress for so long, as a governor of Indiana, people think he's qualified. So that's the most important thing. And now Mike Pence will go away. Donald Trump and Mike Pence will not be seen together on the same stage, maybe between now and election day.
But he's a man so diametrically opposed.
I totally understand. All I'm trying to say is, to most voters in the country, they're going to vote for Donald Trump or they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. And Trump has solved the main problem. Now, once I get below the headline level, was the rollout managed well? No. Was Trump really happy with the pick? Probably not. His gut, I think, was to pick Christie or to pick Gingrich. He capitulated in some ways to a notion that he had rejected out of hand, that party unity mattered. Literally a month ago, he was saying, I don't care about party unity.
But the essence of his campaign has been to not capitulate ever.
This is my point. So can we psychoanalyze it? That he allowed himself to be tamed, that he allowed himself to kind of capitulate to the establishment, to the notion of party unity, to the professionals around him who wanted him to pick someone reassuring. All those things are true. And on top of that, it was a horribly bungled, botched rollout. Sitting in that event, where I was there on Saturday when Pence came out, it was a ridiculous event. Trump talked about himself for 23 minutes and barely mentioned Pence. Finally brought Pence out. They didn't do the photo. That's the whole point, is to stand out there with your running mate and say, here we are, we're the victors. Did not do that. Did not get that done. The event was horribly lit. It was early in the morning, so most swing states, it was like 9:30 in the morning. No voters would be watching. It was absurd on many levels. But will it matter? Will it matter next week? It will not matter next week, because the only thing that really matters is the press all over Mike Pence as being unqualified, and they're not. So, Trump will now, he got that out of the way, he'll move on.
I'm going to get you out of here with this one. 4 days from now, where does this party stand?
I am fundamentally believe that there is nothing that Donald Trump can do here that will actually unify the party in a deep way, right? Because he just disagrees with too much of Republican orthodoxy. There are too many Republicans who are still uneasy, even those who have supported him publicly. But what he can do, potentially, is show a side of himself to voters, many of whom will be first ever really paying attention to this for the first time on Thursday night. They'll be like, okay, time to start focusing on the presidential election. Let's see this Donald Trump thing. I've heard a lot of stuff. Let's see what this guy's really like. His family is going to be a big part of this convention. If Trump can show a part of himself, a part of his character that is not the part that's stereotypical, that's the caricature, if he can show some parts of himself that are softer, warmer, more human, more humane, he could do himself a little bit of good here at this convention. And I think that's, with all these family members, his kids are going to be up on stage, his wife's going to be up on stage. It's going to be an opportunity for him to change the narrative just a little bit. And given how close the race is, at least on the surface right now, changing the narrative a little bit could do Donald Trump a lot of good.
Busiest man in Cleveland.
All right.
John Heilemann.
Good to see you, man.
Thanks, bud.